Hello everyone, welcome back to another remote sensing lecture video. And in this lecture video, what I want to do is I want to talk about band ratios. Band ratios, which we've already sort of defined as dividing one band by another. So let's go ahead and talk about what band ratios actually look like. So what I want to do is I want to use an example here. And again, this example, there is nothing special, particularly about the bands I'm picking. I'm just picking two bands that you often see related to each other because of their usefulness for vegetation. So what we could do is we could do something called NIR over red. Right? Again, there's nothing special about NIR and red here. These are just two commonly used regions in vegetation remote sensing. Okay, so this is all a band ratio is, right? It's literally just division. This is the math, right? Whatever value you have in the pixel for the NIR band divided by whatever value you have in the pixel for the red band. And what I want to do before we talk about specific examples is I want to talk generally about what these values will take. And I want to do that by considering three cases of values for the red band and three cases of values for the near infrared band. So we're going to end up with this 3x3 grid here. NIR and red. And what I want to do is I want to imagine a low value, a medium value, and a high value for each of these, right? Low, medium, and high for each of these. And what I want to do is I want to assign into a pixel, or into each of these little grids here, a symbol that represents what general value, right? We're not doing specific calculations, what we would generally expect to see. And what I want to do is I want to use two up arrows if it's going to be really large, right? If the value of this band ratio is going to be really large, I want to use one up arrow if we would expect it to be moderately large. I want to give it a tilde if we would expect it to be close to 1. Then I want to give it a down arrow if it's going to be moderately less than 1. I want to give it 2 down arrows if it's going to be greatly less than 1. Sorry for my bad grammar here, but again, so the idea here is if we're going to have a large number, a kind of large number, if it's going to be approximately 1, if it's going to be drastically less, or if it's going to be significantly less. And what I want to do here, before we do anything, is I just want to sort of conceptually think about what the highest value could possibly be. Right, and that's going to be what happens when red approaches 0. We're not assuming negative numbers because negative numbers in remote sensing don't really make sense. Usually that's an issue to do with the quality of the sensor rather than the underlying data. So we're going to assume here that the data is correct. And red approaches 0, right? That's what this low means. Low means approaches 0. High means it's the maximum the data set allows. And medium is going to be somewhere in the middle. Okay, so that's kind of the framework here. And we want to use these symbols here to reference what's going to happen. So I would encourage you, before we go through it, to pause the video now and try and work through this on your own. Okay, hopefully you've made an attempt at it. Let's go ahead and walk through our example specifically. So what's going to happen when the near infrared value is low, again, approaching 0, which is the lowest value that we can get. And red is high, whatever that maximum value is. What's going to happen? Well, our NIR up here is going to be approaching 0, and our number down here is going to be really, really big. Well, what happens when you divide a really small number by a really big number? The resulting value tends to be small. And specifically, it's going to get the smallest that it could ever be, right? So this is going to be the greatly less than, right? This is going to be the smallest we will ever see. Okay. What happens when we have a medium value of NIR divided by a high value of red? Well, this is a little bit bigger than before, but it's still less than this, right? Because this is the medium value and this is the high value. So we would expect this to be moderately low, right? Because it's a moderate number divided by a high number, it's going to be moderately less than 1. So what happens when we have a high value divided by a high value? Well, we're kind of assuming here, I'm going to just state this, we're assuming that these are on the same range, but these are going to be when you start getting closer and closer to 1, right? Because if NIR equals red, you're going to have a value of 1 here. So these are going to be, you're moderately close to 1. Hopefully that makes sense. What if we have a low NIR divided by a medium NIR? Well, now, right, you have a low number divided by a slightly bigger number, but it's not as high as it was. Right, this is going to be moderately less than 1 because you have a small number being divided by a large number, but it's not as large as this was. What about a medium divided by a medium? Well, in this case, right, we're going to end up with the same scenario as we did here, where you have numbers that are approximately the same value, and you're going to end up with something approximately close to 1. What about a high divided by a medium? Well, this falls into the same category as the low divided by medium, except now it's flipped. Right now we have the NIR. This is the first time that we have the NIR value being higher than the red. So we have a large number being divided by a slightly smaller number, right? Because this is the next step down. So in this case, we would actually have a slightly larger number, right? Because we sort of flipped it, right? In this case, we had a lower number divided by a slightly larger number. In this case, we have a higher number being divided by a slightly smaller number. So the overall result is going to be, it's going to be moderately large. Okay? So what about low divided by low? Well, again, just like medium divided by medium and high divided by high, right? These two numbers are going to be really close together, which means our value is going to approach 1. What about medium divided by low? Well, again, right, just like high divided by medium, right, we have a number divided by a slightly smaller number, which means this is going to be moderately large. And then finally, high divided by low, this is the other extreme. Right? This is where we have value. This value is as big as it's going to get, and this value is as small as it's going to get, which is going to make this as large as it can be. So this is going to be really large. Hopefully this made sense. Again, I'm just talking conceptually here. The actual values, for what we define low, medium, high as are kind of arbitrary. But it's just to give you a sense of what happens, right? What sort of different options we have for what this value is going to take. Is it going to be really high? Is it going to be really low? Is it going to be approximately 1? So I know this was a lot. Hopefully it makes sense. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.